Hi everyone, Carter Krishnaiyer here for Beyond the 90, addressing I think what is one of the biggest talking points we've had in the history of the postseason format of the USL Championship, the current postseason format, which is LouCity losing to Detroit. Because if it happens once, it's a one-off. If things like this continue to happen over the course of many seasons, then you begin to think maybe there's something wrong with the competition format in the USL Championship. Now, first off, let me preface by saying congratulations to Detroit City. Great accomplishment. Very, very happy for them and their supporters. Some of the best supporters, if not the best supporters in this country. And that I actually, on the surface, even though I'm a neutral, would want Detroit to beat LouCity. But let's talk about now the clunkiness of what has happened over the course of many seasons in a league that has devalued its regular season and devalued excellence in the regular season. We saw this in 2023 with Pittsburgh, winning the Players' Shield, getting the number one overall seed in the playoffs and the number one seed in the East, losing to a Detroit City team that did not know they had qualified for the playoffs until 1 a.m. The last day of the season, or the morning after the last day of the season, when Miami lost to Sacramento, when Sacramento got a late goal to beat Miami on the West Coast. Detroit snuck in as the 8th seed. Then they beat Pittsburgh a week later after a very mediocre season. This season, Detroit has been poor for 4 months. They played a little better in their last two matches where they strung out draws in Charleston, very impressive result, and then in Tampa Bay with everything on the line for both teams in St. Petersburg. And then they go into LouCity and win. Full marks. But is it really fair that LouCity, that ran away with the Players' Shield this year, breaking all sorts of records in the USL Championship along the way, should be placed in a competition format where they could lose in a one-off match and that their season be over? Because one-off matches are prone to, I've always said officiating evens out over a full season, which is why I don't like complaining about referees. However, if you're going to boil it down to one match, and I don't think there were any major officiating controversies in this match. The officiating controversy from the weekend for me was in the El Paso, a couple of calls in the El Paso Phoenix match, but nothing really in this match. But still, a dodgy penalty, a random red card, bad officiating decisions, and everything can be blown up. And it's punitive on the team that had the better regular season, the team that was better, the team that was, in this case, significantly better than the other team. We saw this in 2024 with Rhode Island catching fire through the playoffs. We saw it in 2021 with Orange County. We saw it in 2023 with a Phoenix Rising team that was poor for much of that season. Actually, 2021, same thing, Orange County, poor for most of that season. Those two teams won the title. So I think USL, if they are actually going to do something where they do promotion and relegation, and they're moving teams up and down the divisions based on merit, they have to change this format. It cannot be based on these random one-off matches, which then devalues the regular season. And secondly, and I say this very, very strongly, will reward teams that get hot for 3 weeks and allow them to be promoted up a division. If they keep this playoff format in place and then the winner goes up. And then those teams may not be as competitive. There's no question in my mind that if you look at 2023, Charleston is more competitive if they go up a division than Phoenix Rising is. Or that's a bad example, 2021, Orange County versus Tampa Bay in that final. Tampa Bay is definitely going to be more competitive in the division above. And it shouldn't even come down to that. It shouldn't come down to who makes the final. It should come down to some sort of weighting based on regular season, and perhaps you factor in a postseason tournament or a second cup competition. If you launch this, it would actually be a third cup competition because we have the Open Cup, which which is U.S. soccer's competition. The USL Cup is run by USL, the League Cup, or formerly the Jägermeister Cup. Maybe you have another cup competition which represents your postseason. But you cannot have situations where I think the wrong teams are potentially winning postseasons. And it's great for them. And it's a crapshoot. And it's like the March Madness thing. And it gets people excited, gives everybody a shot. I'm all for that in terms of maintaining fan interest. Although I don't know how good it is from a revenue standpoint either, because it's a cash drain to actually be the 8th seed and then win a couple playoff games and have to constantly travel. So maybe that's where the punishment comes in for being poor in the regular season or being mediocre in the regular season. But as USL structures itself and makes noises about being much more serious, and we're gonna talk a little more about that tomorrow with potential hiring that Alex Ashton wrote about. If you want to check out his article, following up on a story by The Athletic, potential hiring for USL, big time hiring, big time hiring. You have to solve some of the clunkiness of this playoff format and really deal with the issues that I think are coming from the failure to create something where you can have 2-leg ties, or you can reduce the playoffs to 4 teams in each conference and then have home and away and aggregate goals and maybe not even have extra time. If it's tied after 180 minutes, if it's level after 180 minutes, the higher seed goes through until you get to until you get, at least in that first round, until you get to the conference finals, and then one leg, a USL final, but just one leg. We did a 2-leg tie for a couple of years in the NASL. It was kind of cool, but our postseason was stretched out as a result. 2-leg tie for the final. So our postseason ended up being 6 weeks, which I don't think USL wants, especially because they have a legitimate TV deal, which we didn't have at NASL. But they need to solve this. Now, let's address another issue. Does this loss, coming on the heels of losing to Rhode Island last season, again, LouCity, best team in the league last season, the regular season, they win the Players' Shield just like they did this year. Prior to the last 2 seasons, they had made the Eastern Conference Final 9 straight seasons. They had some losses to Tampa Bay in there, had a loss to Charleston in there. So they weren't always making the final, but they were making the Eastern Conference Final. Now, the last 2 seasons have been their 2 best regular seasons since the first 2 seasons, 15 and 16. Maybe better than those teams, right? It's hard to compare because you were playing a lot of reserve teams in those days. So maybe these were their 2 best teams. And then they bombed out in the playoffs. Does that put Cruz's job in jeopardy? I don't think it should, but I think it probably will. And this is another issue with this format, and I think it's very, very unfortunate that you're developing players and you're selling on players, as LouCity has done. You've got legacy players who've been with the club for long periods of time. Ownby, Cameron Lancaster's come back, Davila, right? You've got these legacy players. You produced the Winder brothers, who have both netted high transfer fees by USL standards. Okay, all these transfer fees are undisclosed, but I understand those were 2 of the larger transfers in league history. I know it seems like every transfer is being reported as a league record. Those are not always true. I guess if you're not reporting the number, you don't disclose the number, you can say whatever you want. But those are high transfer fees. And they have a culture around the club. They have been able to bring in incredible sides like Aston Villa and Eintracht Frankfurt in friendlies, which other USL clubs can't do. The other clubs that can do that are Sacramento and San Antonio, really. And all of this seems to be at the detriment of actually winning championships in this league. And I'm not condemning LouCity for that, by the way. I'm condemning USL with their format where everything is thrown into what you do in November, October, November. This year it's all in November, but some years it's October, November on that. Because LouCity has an excellent 12-month trajectory. November is just another month. But you can not spend on players, not invest on infrastructure, not do anything right in terms of the build, limp through a USL season, make the playoffs and win a title. And then you can do everything perfectly the way LouCity now has done for multiple seasons and be out. And Pittsburgh in 2023 also was a 1 seed, but I wouldn't put them in the same category as LouCity. I'm not a LouCity supporter at all. In fact, I generally root against them because they're the best team. They've been, in the last 10 years, them and Sacramento have been the big dogs in USL. So as a neutral, I tend to root for the underdogs. But, and I was truthfully, as a neutral, kind of rooting for Detroit City in this match. But you wake up the next morning and you think about it and you reflect on it and you realize this isn't really meritorious. So, that's my thought. I'd love to hear everybody's feedback.